I am Lori Troe, President of the League of Women Voters. I want to welcome you all to our candidate forum. A big thanks to the members of the Salina League of Women Voters who helped put this event together. Thank you to the candidates for coming. Thank you to our media panel for attending. Thank you to Eagle Radio, Salina Media Connection for providing video of this event. And a huge thank you to the Steifel Theater for allowing us to use their facility. It is so important in an election for the voters to meet and hear from the candidates who are asking for their vote. We have candidate booklets over on the table. We also have yard signs. We have these QR codes that you can scan if you would like to learn more about the judges, the Court of Appeals judges that are going to be on the ballot, and restrooms are around the corner. At this time, I would like to turn the forum over to our moderators, Bruce Wyatt and Cori Sherman-North.
Thank you, Lori. As you know, today's forum is sponsored by the Salina League of Women Voters. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization of women and men of every age, race, background, and political belief. Through more than 1,200 local leagues, state leagues, and the national organization, League members work to promote citizen action on local, state, and national issues. The League as an organization does not support particular candidates. Our goal for today's forum is to provide Salina area voters with information about the candidates in the locally contested races on the ballot, as well as for the state races as well. There are, of course, other state and local races as well, but they're not being contested, so they're not participating in this forum today. Voters, just a little information on voting after all. Voters may vote by mail or in advance at the office of the county clerk, room 215, City County Building, 300 West Ash in Salina. Voting in advance, as a matter of fact, starts tomorrow, Monday, October 21st. And I believe the office opens at 8 a.m. for the early risers. Pardon? 8:30? Okay, there we go. So don't be that early. We do want to thank, as Lori mentioned, Jane Gates, Executive Director of the Steifel, for the use of the Watson Room, and also thanks to the staff around here who've set this up beautifully and made it also available to us. We also want to thank our media panelists for participating today, Nathan King of Eagle Radio, Charles Rankin of the Salina Journal, and Nick Fiero of KSAL. Also to be thanked today are Ann Zimmerman and Margaret Wyatt, who will be the timekeepers today, whose job is to keep us on schedule. There are numerous other folks to be thanked in putting this forum together, but in the interest of time, we cannot name them all, but thank you. Today's forum will spotlight candidates for the Kansas Senate District 24, Kansas House of Representatives District 69, and the Kansas County Commission District 2. All candidates in these contested races, as well as other candidates for state and local races, were invited to attend and to complete a candidate questionnaire. You can find their responses on the website for the League at www.lwvsalina.org. The candidates here today, let me introduce them in alphabetical order, are in the race for the Senate, the challenger, John Baker, a Democrat, and J.R. Clays, a Republican, and the incumbent, who was not in attendance, is the incumbent in that race. In the race for the House seat in District 69, Lori Blake, a Democrat, is here, and as is Clarke Sanders, a Republican, and the incumbent. In the race for the open seat in District 2 on the Salina County Commission, Kathleen Malone Crouch is here, conducting a write-in campaign, and Annie Grevas, a Republican, is here. That said, I would like to introduce Cori Sherman-North, the co-moderator, who is Voter Service Chair, the Salina League of Women Voters, and she will review the ground rules.
Hello. Rules. Sure. Sorry, I'm too short for this. The ground rules for today are as follows. We will have first 1-minute opening remarks by all the candidates. And then with all the questioning, we will alternate the order of candidates speaking, answering questions, just down the line. We will start this process off with questions from the media panel. And then after that period, we will take questions from the audience. Questions from the audience should pertain to all the candidates or to the particular seat that the candidates are running for, but not to one individual. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question, both from the media and from the audience later. A green sign will be held up at the start of 1 minute. Then a yellow sign will be held up by the timekeepers to indicate the candidate has 20 seconds left. And then the red sign is held up to indicate the candidate should stop speaking at this point. Then, to close up the afternoon, after the questions from the media and then the audience, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. We will now start with the candidates giving their 1 minute opening remarks, starting with John Baker at the end there.
Wow, that's intimidating. Thank you so much. Does somebody else want to go first? I'm just kidding. To start, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. It is extremely important work. It seems like over the last few years, there's been a vacuum in media, and there are very few news outlets that even exist in our community to inform voters. This is about civic engagement. We're going to be having important conversations today. But noticeably absent from today's conversation is going to be my opponent, Jeremy Ryan Clays. It's been noticeable throughout the entire election so far. He's avoided community events and even played a pivotal role in having another forum canceled. He's avoided voter interaction and opportunities to discuss his record. And I think we can all agree here today that showing up matters, especially when you're an elected official. Accountability matters. I think as an elected official and even as candidates, we have a duty to present ourselves to the public so that we can answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was supposed to be like a 3-minute speech. So
Do you want my minute?
yeah, that'd be great.
I'm a sharer.
Great. Are you ready to start your minute?
Yeah, I didn't know. My name's Annie Grevas. I'm running for County Commission District 2. First, I want to thank again that we are doing this forum and that it was offered. She's trying to get me off quickly. But second of all, I want to thank District 2 voters for voting me as the winner in the primary election. I'm very, very grateful. And because of my opponent, Kathleen, I say it kindly, I have enjoyed campaigning still. I'm meeting new people, continuing to be out and about, and doing the work that is so important in our local community. So thank you, and I'm going to end early. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kathleen?
Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Malone Crouch, and I am a write-in candidate because I did lose in the primary by 17 votes. I asked myself at the time that those votes were counted, can you live with this? And I decided no. If I did not try to do the best that I could do, then I would wonder for the rest of my life if I could have made a difference in Saline County. So I applied to run by write-in. It has been a very active campaign. Annie and I have seen each other a fair amount. I believe that I have experienced, because of the 10 years that I worked for the county and worked for 3 different departments at the same time, that I have a unique perspective to put in and understand how those how those departments work together. That's about all I can say. Please vote for me.
And are we ready, Clarke?
Well, we'll be ready in just a second. Just to clarify, what does the yellow sign mean? 20 seconds.
20
left.
seconds is the yellow card.
Okay, thank you.
That's how long we have left.
My name is Clarke Sanders. I'm the incumbent in the 69th district. This is the 4th forum that Lori and I have done together, and for the most part, it's been pretty good. She did, at the last forum, bring up something in her closing statement, which I thought was a little bit disingenuous, that I didn't have a chance to respond to, and it was about my attendance. I have attended 100% in 2021, 2022, and 2023. I have missed 1 day in 2024. I would have missed 2, but the weather was bad that day and they had to call it off. But I have never missed a regular session vote. I did miss a special session vote because the governor waited till harvest was starting and vacation season was starting to call it. So I did miss that vote, but I talked with leadership. I would have flown in from California to be there if I needed to be, but he said that wasn't necessary.
Thank you. And Lori?
All right, well, thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to have a full room to participate in this conversation today. I'm doing this because I believe we need to be participating in bipartisan conversations. I'm a wife, I'm a mom of 3, I'm a local business owner and a nonprofit leader. Every position I've been in this community has landed me in leadership. Since I started this work in April, I started knocking doors in July, and it has been a most wonderful opportunity to listen to our community neighbors and citizens, to hear what they're concerned about in our community. It matches up much with what I've heard over my career in human services with children and families, that our families are struggling financially, and we've got to figure out a way to support them through the most important times of their lives, which is when they're raising their children. We have young people here who can't afford housing to get started in life before they've even started their families.
Thank you, candidates. Now, this part of our program, we will take questions from the media. And we've allocated, I think, until 2:15. So I hope you guys have got the questions ready. And let's lead. All right, let's start with Nick Fiero.
So I'll start a question with Clarke and Lori. What changes would you like to see regarding abortion? We'll go with Clarke first.
With abortion?
Yes, some changes you would like to see regarding abortion in Kansas.
Okay. So from my perspective, unfortunately, Value Them Both failed. So we now have to find ways to do what we can in the pro-life movement. And one of the things that I did in 2023 was offer the Infant Born Alive Protection Act. We also, this past session, passed help for pregnancy service centers, which provide services for moms and dads, both before and after the baby is born. And we need to get some legislation that gives some power to men, because as it stands right now, they have no say in the abortion issue. Even if they're a husband, they can't, they have no say, and she didn't create the baby on her own.
And then we'll go with Lori.
Okay. Well, I believe that our voters have spoken on this issue, and I am personally opposed to the government being in my medical room making personal decisions about my body. I believe that I trust women to include the fathers of their children in those decisions, and that's a decision that those people should be making with their medical providers. So in the case of our current law, I see no need to change anything.
Hello, Nathan King with the Salina Post. I just want to again say thank you to the League for having this forum today. It's just very important that we get to speak with candidates. So this question is for Annie and for Ms. Malone Crouch. What is something that you have learned about the people of Saline County during your race while knocking doors? And what is that something that maybe you hadn't considered before? And what also, my second part is, what do you feel as though is your best personality trait about yourself that will be beneficial to serving on the commission?
Who goes?
But, Annie, we'll start with you.
Lovely. One thing, you asked what I've learned. I've learned that people want to be informed. People care that you're out and about. People in Saline County and in Salina are beautiful. I have just met some of the most caring individuals, whether they're supporting myself or my opponent. They're open, they're honest, and so I think that people care more about politics than I've seen or thought in the last 10 years. And so I think that that is wonderful, and you see it in other states, and I like to see that we care in Kansas. So that's the first. I know I'm going to be short on the second piece. The second piece was...
What personality trait about yourself do you think will be the most be beneficial for your role as a county commissioner?
Well, my personality is... I'm going to avoid the word aggressive, but I'm bold, and I'm forthright, and I bring it to the table. And I'm... Oh. He asked 2 questions. We should get 2 minutes. I'm gonna complain on that one.
Classic journalism. I'm
Yeah.
a 2-part question. Right?
Unfair.
It's the worst game
Please
show I've
repeat
ever
the
done.
question.
Yeah. So question number 1 is, I didn't know if it. Part 2 of my question was your personality. What trait about yourself is going to be the best? Be credible for you on the county commission? And then the second part was, what is something about the people of Saline County that you have learned about while knocking on doors and meeting with people?
Okay. I have learned, as Annie did, that the people in Saline County do want to be informed. There was a door that I knocked on that an hour and a half later, my husband came from the car to find out why I was still talking to that person. He was worried. We were standing in the yard. It was around the corner from the front door. And only once have I had someone say, I don't have time for this. So overall, it's been people wanting to be informed. My trait is, I would have to say, perseverance and the determination to see things through. I believe that if there's a job worth doing at all, you should follow it through and complete it to the best of your ability. And too often I think people start things and don't finish, but I do.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Charles Rankin with the Salina Journal. I'm going to ask a question for the 3 state candidates, just because it's easier that way for me, probably. So increasingly in the United States, states are expanding Medicaid coverage. Kansas still has not done that. So my real question is, what's your stance on expansion of Medicaid, and why is that your stance? And I guess we'll go with John.
Me first?
Yeah. You haven't talked yet. So.
I'm going to watch those cards really quickly now. I fully support the expansion of Medicaid in the state of Kansas. It's a no-brainer at this point. We send out, I think it's over $6 billion at this point to other states who have expanded their programs. Expanding Medicaid, I think, is the right thing to do also because we should be caring about our neighbors. People need health insurance. Expansion of Medicaid could also serve as a lifeline to our rural communities, which are honestly dying, and it's scary. People need health care services. Somebody shouldn't have to drive multiple hours to receive the care that they need. We can't afford to do it. It makes financial sense for the state to do it, and it's the right thing to do for our friends and family members.
I'm opposed to the expansion of Medicaid. What it would do is it would add 140 to 50,000 able-bodied 19 to 60-year-olds to the Medicaid rolls, which there are already people that are back in line, and that would just push them further back. We don't know what it would cost. We don't know what it would cost over the length of time we would be in it. Everybody always talks about, oh, we're missing out on this much or that much federal money. It's still your taxes, whether it's fed or state or local. And we don't know what it would cost. And there are 13 populations, vulnerable populations served by Medicaid already as it stands now. Why push those people who really need services back further in line? That doesn't make sense to me. I'm opposed to the expansion of Medicaid.
Well, I have worked with children and families for my entire career. Since January, there have been 57,000 children removed from our Medicaid rolls because of the COVID eligibility. And so those 57,000 children would be captured in this Medicaid expansion, along with another 150,000. A family of four to qualify currently is $11,856. These are impoverished people. We need to add those 19 to 60-year-old able-bodied employees to these roles so that they can afford to pay rent, they can afford to pay for housing, and they have some additional assistance for childcare. Having access to medical care is a basic need. It's a basic right, I think, in our community, and we need to at least have the debate about it. That's been blocked by our leadership in the Senate and in the House currently, and we need to have more bipartisan dialogue.
All right. So I got a question for Miss Kathleen Malone Crouch and Annie Grevas. Grevas, right? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
You can say it any way you want.
All right, Grevas. There you go. So, as we all know, here in Salina, that there are several buildings in Salina that have available space. There's a lot of, most notably the old Saline County Jail and the Memorial Hall being one of them. And the city and county leaders have already been gathering ideas for potential use of facilities, but we'd like to know your guys' ideas, so we'll go with you, Ms. Grevas.
Great. This is one of my top priorities. Abandoned buildings, repurposing existing buildings. You see it downtown all the time. We're owning it, we're doing it, and it's beautiful. The health department needs a new space. It's got leaky roof, and it's headed that way for a long time. You mentioned the jail. Memorial Hall is currently being looked at as maybe some spaces. I'll give a shout out to Boys and Girls Club. I'm serving on a committee to get a Boys and Girls Club started in our community, and I see several members of my committee here, and I'm grateful for that. We're touring these buildings. We know that just to knock down the jail is $1 million. I've got to actively participate with the county and the city on the review of these things. And so dollars are going to be impacted. People want the jail to be repurposed. It is going to take several $1 million to repurpose that. Knocking it down is $1 million. But we don't have $1 million to do that, so it's going to sit. But there are other buildings that can be repurposed, and the health department needs to go into one of those.
I agree, there are buildings that we should be using. However, having worked in the basement of that building that the old jail is in, I know that when it rained, often the basement flooded. And that's where my office was, in the basement. We didn't flood, but records did. So records for court cases. There were many, many police officers and deputies who were rescuing evidence and records, and that's not how we need to spend our time. The health department does need to be raised. When I helped move back into that health department, pipes overhead burst on us as we were moving in. So some of those buildings are not worth using. We are looking at the use of some of the buildings like Memorial Hall, but some of them just need to be done away with.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to take a line from Charlie. This is going to go to all the folks running for state office. So right now, the state as well as the country is kind of grappling with how to address the unhoused populations that we have in our communities. My question to you all is, how can this issue be addressed at the state level, and what will you do to ensure that House leadership and Senate leadership brings bills to the floor that will bring funding to the local level to address this? And we'll start with you, John.
this is a very complicated issue, and it's going to require a lot of cooperation between state agencies and, of course, additional funding from the state level. I think at its core, the issue with homelessness or the homeless population in our state is quite simply just access to housing and affordable housing. Housing is extremely expensive right now. I'm a professional, my wife is a professional, and we're not in a position to buy a home right now because the prices are outrageous. Now, a lot of people are experiencing that and being pushed out of their homes. Like, it's a major financial issue. I think is also part of the solution here. We need much greater access to mental health resources in our communities. I know a lot of people who are homeless have difficulty with addiction and substance abuse, and this is definitely part of the solution is access to care.
Clarke?
Don't count that against my time. Okay. Homelessness is a really big and tough issue. If there were simple solutions, people would have come up with them by now. One of the major things that you have to answer is which comes first, the addiction or the homelessness? And can you really treat homelessness without finding a good way to treat addiction? So I've been involved in some meetings where we've talked about what to do about it, but it's definitely going to be addressed again in the legislature this coming session. And so I hope to be a part of some productive conversations in that. One thing that I think we can do and should do is address the low-hanging fruit, and that is we should pass legislation that says one unit of government, such as a city or a county, can't take and ship their homelessness to the county line so that it becomes the second county's problem. That ought not be allowed.
Okay, so just like tough issues like childcare locally, I think Salina and Saline County is a beacon of hope for our state and the way we work together. We are really good at looking at private investment and then taking local, state, and federal resources and pairing them together. I think our state's role in this would be to potentially put together a pool of grants that could be competitive again, so there's some oversight. This happened with COVID dollars and happened with some state dollars recently in the child care crisis. And then the community comes together and says, we are unique. We understand our place better than everyone in Topeka does. So let's come together and look at what that looks like here. I do believe that our mental well-being is a big part of the issue when it comes to homelessness. And so Medicaid expansion, again, would be another lever that we could pull to assist in that process and caring for our citizens that don't have that basic need of housing every night.
Thank you.
Okay, Annie and Kathleen. So one of you will be filling an empty seat that's coming up. What different things can you think of for this county that could be done that you haven't necessarily seen from either the current county commissioners or just in general?
I want to be clear. I worked for the county for 35 years, and I worked right hand in hand with the county commissioners, and I've seen too many county commissioners that I can even recall. The current county commission as a whole is very active, very out there and participating with efforts, and so I don't want to say that I'm going to fill a seat and do better than they have. Our current county commission does a good job. I'm a female, if you don't know that. I bring that. It has not been on the county commission since Lucy Larson was appointed when they changed it from 3 to 5. So I bring a different voice. I bring a different perspective. I bring different emotions, but also thoughtfulness and those kind of things. So I think that being that, but also I hate to say it, I'm almost 60, but I'm young. And because I want to belt out a song so bad. Pink? Well, something.
My mind lost the question.
What are you going to bring?
I know. One thing that the county commissioners are considering right now is a change in the number of meetings that they hold or how they could better use their time. I don't know that the public is aware that that's a big consideration, and that was one thing that I was going to propose. I would again bring a female's perspective, and there have been female commissioners. The earliest that when I made a list for a county in service some years ago, there were female commissioners back in the 1980s, but they have been far between and few. I believe that I would be present, minus medical reasons. There are commissioners who are not present, and I just think that I have, again, a unique perspective to offer.
Mr. John Baker, how you doing, man? So you touched a little bit about on mental health, and I'm curious to see if you think there's any issues, and if therefore if there is any issues, what would you improve on regarding when it comes to education in Kansas for K through 12 and also universities?
I'm not sure I understand your
Yeah,
question.
I'm just trying. I'm asking if you feel there's any issues. If there's like it could be anything. I mean, you touched on mental health. If you want to talk about that, but if there's any issues on education when it comes to K through 12 schools in Kansas and also universities.
Again, I'm not sure. So are you asking me whether or not, like, I think there's an issue with mental health services?
No, just educational
Or do you want me to
issues.
just talk about schools?
Yeah, just if there's any education issues, like if there's need to be improvements.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if we're just talking about schools and improvements,
Uh-huh.
I think Kansas is a model for public education throughout the country. The only issue that I can think of off the top of my head right now is that every single year in Topeka, it's a fight to fund our public schools, which I think is ridiculous. Like, congrats, like they can pat themselves on the back for fully funding public schools last year, but we're still underfunding special education, and we need to fix that. We have extra money in the rainy day fund as a state, and I think we could be allocating some of those resources to special education, but most of all, we just need to be supporting our teachers so that our schools continue to be as great as they are.
I'm going to address my question to the state folks running for state office. There are an estimated 4,500 Kansans with intellectual and developmental disabilities waiting for life-sustaining waiver services, and some of those folks, the wait list is 9 years that they've been waiting. What is your plan to address this, and so that way these folks can get these life, just very necessary services? And we'll start with you, John.
I went last time. Can I
Oh,
defer
yeah,
to
well,
Lori,
yeah, that's
actually?
okay. We'll start over on this
There
side.
you go.
Yeah,
That's good
Lori,
balance.
we'll start on here.
All right. So I worked for 11 years in disability supports and understand Medicaid waiver services probably better than anyone at this table because of that work. I was an advocate in schools, and those services not only support the individual, but it allows family members to get back to work. And so for me, it's an economic development opportunity, and again, this goes back to Medicaid expansion. Some of those dollars could be utilized specifically for waiver services. We have a $3 billion surplus in our state coffers right now that could be utilized to address that. They did, I think, fund about 100 off the waiting list last year. So they recognize that there has been an issue, but these children and families need it. And the caregivers that come in are not making a ton of money doing that. So we've got to make sure that our wages are also competitive so we're not creating impoverished people who are reliant upon those services.
I attended a meeting last year, not in the Capitol, but it was in Lawrence, and Stephen Johnson, the treasurer, had invited us to this meeting because he wanted to talk about a program that has been developed through his office. And it was a good program, but the problem was a lot of people who could take advantage of the benefits of this program didn't know about it. So what I would be in favor of is making sure that everybody who needs these services number one, knows of their availability, and number two, how to access them.
I'm going to say I don't necessarily disagree with anything that Clarke has stated, but I especially agree with things that Lori stated for sure, which is precisely why I punted to her. She knows a lot more about this issue than I do. I'll be fully transparent, and this feels really lazy of me to do. It's not something I'm entirely informed on, but I know it upsets me hearing that that many people are on a waiting list, and we need to do something about it.
Thank you.
All right, state folks, here's another big one for you. So currently, Nebraska has decriminalized the use of marijuana. Oklahoma has, medical marijuana on the books. Colorado and Missouri, all four sides of Kansas, have created laws for recreational use of marijuana. What is maybe your stance on where that issue is right now in the state of Kansas? It seems to be in the fringes of being brought up every legislative session. But currently nothing has been formally done on the books. So what's your stance on the use of decriminalization or potentially changing laws for marijuana in the state? Clarke, we'll go with you first.
Well, thank you. So the first thing everybody needs to understand is, despite what a lot of states have done, marijuana isn't legal anywhere in the United States. There's still a federal law against it. And that's important because pharmacies are very uneasy about prescribing marijuana, even if it's for medical use. Now, I support medicinal marijuana. However, I don't support it being dispensed by dispensaries. It needs to be dispensed through pharmacies. So we've got to figure out a way to work around that issue. I am opposed to legalizing or decriminalizing recreational use of marijuana. But as far as medical goes, I think there's ample evidence that it could do a lot of good.
Thank you. So this is an issue I didn't really have on my radar heading into this election, but as I've been at the door, there are a lot of our citizens that want us to look at this and study it. I believe that there's a place in our state to consider the implications, whether that's medical or recreational. I know that our jails and our families that are struggling with addiction, we don't have enough services to support those that are in recovery now. So it's a complicated conversation. If we're gonna open the floodgates, regulate it, tax it, maybe there's some additional opportunities to be prepared to help families recover from addictions that could be related to this. But again, it's a subject that I need to spend a lot more time learning about, but there is definitely an appetite in our community for the dialogue.
I fully support the legalization of both recreational and medical cannabis, and surprise, surprise, 70% of Kansans in a recent poll said that they also support the legalization of medical cannabis, and I think it's just over 60% that support the legalization of recreational. Despite the fact that it's still technically illegal at the federal level, there are a lot of laws that are still on the books that are not enforced, and marijuana happens to be one of those cases. Look at our neighbors like Colorado. They've had recreational marijuana available to their citizens since, I think, 2014. And it's been fantastic for them. They're using their money to fund our public schools, and I'd love to see something like that happen for the state of Kansas. For recreational, legalization also has serious implications for criminal justice in our state. Number of people of color who are arrested disproportionately than white people for simple marijuana possession is ridiculous, and we need to stop it. And for legalization of medical, I really don't even think we need to get into that too much. It's pretty apparent that it has medicinal properties, and it would be great for our veterans and PTSD and people who suffer from chronic pain.
We'll make this the last round, starting with Nick.
John Baker. So you've been, how you doing? So you've been.
Does Jeremy want to answer?
So you've been touching a lot about it, schools, and I just want you to keep getting it more into that, dive deeper into it. So over 75 school buildings and approximately 29 districts across the state have implemented a 4-day school week this year, up from 60 last year. So what are your thoughts on just a 4-day school week?
I'm probably going to defer the technicalities of this conversation to somebody like Lori, but I think if it's working for your district, like if that local control decides that that's what they want and they need for their community, I don't see an issue. It's my understanding that it's really about curriculum time or the amount of time in the classroom, and I think Lori can correct me on this, but like I said, if it works for the community, it works for the community. Of course, there are issues that may arise, like, when you talk about childcare, which is a serious issue that we're talking about today. We would need potential solutions for that, but really I think it's a community level decision.
Okay, this question is for everyone. So this year alone, USD 305 in particular has seen multiple instances of school threats to our schools and buildings. What is it for our state folks running for state House or Senate? What can you do in your role to kind of make sure that these schools are receiving additional funding or training or whatnot to prevent and be proactive to that? And then at the county level, similar to you, what can be done from a county's perspective of as far as hardening schools and making sure that school boards have everything that they need as well? So just trying to talk about how we can be more proactive when it comes to protecting our communities from gun violence.
Can I go first?
Of course.
Only because I want to make it clear that Saline County Commission has no ability to dictate how the schools do things. We all know that Salina PD and Saline County Sheriff's Office have first responders within the schools, and that happened several years ago at a request of the schools, but also I think a demand of the parents in the community, and I think that's there. I think us being active and listening to the school board, being a part of what's going on in our community and not putting a shield over us and saying, well, we're only county commission, we don't play a role in that. Funding is not going to come directly from that, but I think we can support grant funding. It's all across the nation right now because we've seen a lot of school shootings, and so there is grant dollars out there. I think we can assist in providing them access to those, maybe support in the writing of those, but be supportive as a community member.
Yeah.
I beg to differ with my opponent. Our county does have a great deal to do with the training in the schools. Emergency management works for all of the public and any private entities who want to be worked with on emergency preparedness, including going in and training for active shooter and training for any extra, whether it's weather-related or anything that's safety in any manner. The emergency management works with the police department and works with the sheriff's office and the fire department and brings in to the schools many programs and to the medical offices. So emergency management, which is unique to the county, is under the direction of the county commissioners.
And then Lori?
Sure. The last 9 years, I was the executive director at Child Advocacy and Parenting Services, and in that time, I coordinated with the Chris's Place Child Advocacy Center a multidisciplinary response team specific to recovery for children who have experienced child abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. I say that because our county, like Kathleen and Annie were just talking about, our county and city resources come together every single day currently. We do have state laws that are in place currently that require our schools to have crisis response plans and to train our staff currently on that. What we need is the flexibility in our schools to use our budget the way the way boards want to do that, and special education funding would help us free up the general fund so that we could direct those dollars back to safety and not just special education, which is a federally required expense.
I would be in favor of earmarking dollars at the state level for school resource officers. I think that every high school and junior high ought to have a school resource officer. And so if, in order to get that done, it needs state funding, that would be something that I would definitely be in favor of. a school resource officer can't necessarily stop a school shooting, although they might be able to, but they can certainly mitigate it if something tragic begins to happen. So my opinion is we need school resource officers at every high school and junior high.
John?
What I'm hearing a lot of up here are reactions to school shootings. As Clarke said, a police officer can't necessarily or may not be able to stop a school shooting. I think rather than viewing the police as a solution to this problem, because they really only respond to crime, they're not necessarily going to prevent it every single time, there should be a much bigger conversation about the mental health of our students and the resources that are available to our students, and even just like the number of teachers that we have in classrooms who may potentially be able to solve these problems. Like, this is such a deep topic, of course, like, it really is about, I think, mental health and children's ability to access services that they need, and a teacher's ability to give a child the attention they need. And of course, this also extends into like what family life is for the child, and as a community being able to provide support for families who need it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Annie and Kathy, you get the last question from us. So ARPA funding is basically up already. We have, I believe, the end of this year and has to be spent. That kind of caused a windfall of funding to come into the county that was distributed to different counties or different communities, whether it's Salina, Smolin, all the different entities around the county. Now that funding has kind of dried up, what do you see as potentially some of the services that might fall behind due to not being able to having that funded, and where can you find in the county some of the resources to maintain some of those services that people have been relying on the past 3 or 4 years? And you can go ahead.
I'll let you go. I always take the mic first. It's not right.
Okay, well, I don't believe that the completion of ARPA funding is going to stop any services in the county. ARPA funding was used a great deal for infrastructure, and there are always grants. There are programs that were there that benefited certainly, but benefited mostly by building the infrastructure. I just don't think that the ARPA funding affected services.
I will differ with my opponent on this one, only because I received those ARPA funds through several of the entities in which I worked. Community corrections, partnered with law enforcement and got first responders, mental health service providers, alcohol and drug service providers on the street with law enforcement through those dollars. And I was asked about a week ago, who's supposed to write that next grant? Who's going to find those dollars? Well, I don't work at Community Corrections anymore. I'm not sure. I work at Kansas Wesleyan, who also got ARPA funds to educate law enforcement officers, PD, Saline County Sheriff's officers across not only Saline County, but multiple counties across to get their degree and to be proactive in education. And those dollars are now drying up. So ARPA's going to be gone, and we have to find it. At Kansas Wesleyan, we're looking for grants. We're applying for grants. We got a federal grant, and we're doing more work that way. I don't know how law enforcement locally is going to supplement the need, but the first responders are critical.
Grants.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. They can't write them.
That ends the media questions, and guys, that was the great questions, and I think they elicited some very good information from the candidates, and I think everybody benefited there. We will now take questions from members of the audience. 45 minutes have been allotted for this until about 3 o'clock for this part of the program. So there should be time for most, if not all, of the audience members to ask their questions. To do this, however, and to be fair to all the people who'd like to ask questions, we're going to limit a question to 1 minute. No exceptions, please. Think about how you ask your question so we don't end up, cutting it off right in the middle. Please ask questions and don't make statements of opinion. These are questions designed to elicit information for all of us from the candidates. Please avoid questions that require extended multiple responses from the candidates. You could ask a question and I have 5 different parts, and of course that could take up 15 minutes. And again, please do not address your question to one candidate, but you could, if you want to, just address the county or the state officials, but not just to one candidate. That said, please line up behind the microphone so we can begin this part of the program. And remember, do watch for the colored cards. I don't want to,
No question, it's right there.
Yeah, that's right.
Margaret will flag us down for sure. This is a one-part question. This is for all of you, but I'm especially interested in the county candidates' answers. You may remember that in Saline County history, a panel of 3 white commissioners, old men, most of them, seems like all of them actually, had very key issues regarding the health department. In fact, one of those decisions was to maintain the health department. I'm very glad to hear you say it needs to be taken care of and gotten out of the way. The other was that they refused to approve several reproductive health grants for women, and in my opinion, resulted in the drive for 5 being successful and the fact that you have 5 seats on the commission. So my question is, in your official deliberation, if it comes down to maintaining a lean budget, whether for grants or in the regular budget, versus prioritizing women's health care, especially including women's health, reproductive health and choice, where will you come down, on the lean budget or the reproductive health side, women's health side?
Well, I support women health issues and I am pro-choice, and so I want those availabilities in Salina and Saline County. One of the things I want to shout out in our health department, Jason Tiller, the director, is very proactive and writes multiple grants and has ever since I've known him, and I've known him for 20-some years. I would continue to support those grants. I would continue to look for those dollars in whatever ability there is. Our health department needs to serve those that need to be served. And we need to have an environment that is healthy, safe, and proactive. And so I want to be a part of that and writing the grants and looking for those dollars. And I wouldn't stop anybody from writing a grant. A grant is a perfect way to be funded. And those dollars are all across the nation. And like I said, Kansas Wesleyan, that's what I do for a living right now. And those federal grants are very accessible. So I would definitely support that.
I did work for the health department when those 3 commissioners were in, and the thing that brought them to national attention was turning down a grant for IUDs, and one of the commissioners did state it, that they were IEDs killing babies. I was sitting there. I am pro-choice. I am pro-women's health, and again, the county commissioners approve or disapprove what the health department or any other department brings to them. They set the policy by doing that.
My turn?
I think so.
Okay, so I'm pro-life, and but in this particular case, relative to a local county health department, I think that needs to be handled by the local county commissioners and the administrator. I don't know what the role in the state might be, but I can tell you this, I wouldn't be in favor of any funding that could go to the county that would facilitate abortions. I just don't think the government should be facilitating abortions.
So I agree actually with Clarke on the local home rule basis. We elect locally elected officials to make decisions for our county, and that's where those decisions should come from. However, we need to have resources for medical care in our state that is available. It is regulated by KDHE, which is a state-funded department, and so we need to take care of our women. I find it interesting that Clarke says he doesn't think the government should be doing anything with abortion, yet they took our tax dollars for these unsupervised pregnancy service centers, and that is being held accountable to by our state treasurer. It seems like a really crazy use of public funds in that light. And so I am pro-choice, I am pro-woman, I am pro-family, and I believe we need to take care of people, but we need the appropriate people making those decisions.
I don't think I could follow that up any better. I'm pro-choice, I'm pro-women's health. We need to adequately fund it, and the prospect of some sort of lean budget, like, I don't even think is something that should be on our minds. We should pay for it.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Hi, my name is Haley Helzer. Some of you may know me and a little bit about my history, but I was a single mother. I'm still a single mother of a darn near 21-year-old. But I struggled, and I worked part-time jobs, multiple part-time jobs. I didn't qualify for Medicaid. My child did, but because I also worked part-time jobs, I didn't have that there. When I did have a full-time job, finally, when the healthcare, or I'm sorry, when the childcare was there, I was excluded because it was a small business. And so, but I still made too less for the marketplace, and did not qualify for Medicaid as a able-bodied Clarke person. And so in that situation, how do you guys plan to help someone like me? Even at the county level, they did my women's exams, and I was so grateful for them. Thank you.
I know.
I mean, to me, this sounds like an issue that could be potentially solved with the expansion of Medicaid. I think there are a lot of people in your situation, I mean, including myself. It was a number of years ago where my mother was working a job where she fell into that donut hole. She didn't make enough money to provide for everything that we needed, and so we accessed state funds. And, you know, some people are able to do that. Like we had CanCare growing up, and it was a lifeline for us. Like, it was amazing. I was able to have dental care. I think that's extremely important, and we need to do whatever we can do to support our families in that way so that mothers and fathers and everybody in the household, including children, has access to the health care that they need.
I think we can all agree that health care is important. I don't think I've heard anybody say that the health care isn't important, and we have to have healthy citizens, healthy environment for all people that live in Saline County and across the state. One of the things that I'm going to beat like a drum is that grants. I'm telling you, when I was the director of community corrections, I did it. And we funded women's, men's health, children's health. People got dentures because they lost their teeth due to drug usage. Women got health care. The foundation here locally does a women-to-women grant every month that you can apply for, and women receive the services they needed. But you have to know what's going on. That you have to care for these people, and you have to know where they are. And the county's no different. We can do our resources. We can allocate resources from the health department to support the health care. And I agree, it just has to be done. We want healthy citizens.
I believe that our health department is currently doing everything that they can. They write a lot of grants, not only Jason, but some of the sub-department heads do. We have mother, infant, and child care going on with lots of different classes available. We have vaccinations that take place there on a daily basis. We have STD testing. We have numerous services, and many, many grants are written, from Child Care Services Department to nursing to WIC to breastfeeding mothers, you name it. And we just need to be sure that our health department is in a safe and healthy place so that they can continue their good work.
I don't want to sound too cavalier, but the fact of the matter is, this is very difficult to discuss this with having 45 seconds of your history. But all God's children got problems. And I don't know how much the government can and should help you solve your problems. And so that's just what I think, and I know that's not particularly popular, but I mean, do you get no WIC? Do you get no help whatsoever from the government for anything? I mean, I find that hard to believe a person in your situation doesn't, but like I say, not having had that conversation with you, I don't know.
The point was, with my situation was not unique, and it is still not unique.
Okay. You get no help from the government at all?
Right now, no.
Nothing.
I'm not, we can have this conversation later.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in my 25 years of human services, this story is not unique. This is something that we face every single day, and I've been super grateful to have relationships with people like Annie in Community Corrections when I was working at CAPS, that we had collaborative partnerships. And again, we have to be creative. We've got to be real about what our human needs are in this place, and we've got to pair it with private investment, with local, county, state, federal resources. And an example of what can happen when we're open to that idea is a program called Family First that was at CAPS, that's still at CAPS. It's a federal-state partnership that takes dollars, and these families that are at risk of having their children removed from their home, when they get the support they need, are able to stay together. In 4 years, they removed the out-of-home placement by 50%. By targeting some of those dollars. That is an economic development tool to keep families together in our community.
This is in regard to the marijuana issue, recreational, medical. Have any of you studied the roots of marijuana and what it can lead to? After a number of years, I worked a number of years as an addiction counselor, and the majority of patients that I worked with started their long career of heavy drug use with use of marijuana. When it got to that point where marijuana didn't give them the high that they wanted, then they moved on to something stronger, and then, you know, it was morphine and many, many more things. So in regard to legalizing and using medical marijuana, I'd like to get your input.
I'll start, since we've been at the other end, because my answer is kind of simple. I have not studied it, Lene. I do not know the answers to that. I am a lifelong learner, and I will commit to everyone in this room that any issue that comes before me, I'll pour my heart and soul into learning about and try to make decisions that are best for our whole community. Thank you.
So I think that it's clear that there are benefits to medical marijuana. There are plenty of drugs, morphine being one of them, that have good uses, but only if they're prescribed by a doctor and used under a doctor's supervision, and only if they're distributed at a pharmacy. So I agree with you that marijuana is a gateway drug, and there are certainly other drugs that can be problematic if they're not regulated and controlled by a physician. So we need to have more conversations about this. It's been talked about a little in Topeka, but not a lot. And I just think that there are definite possibilities for medical marijuana. I don't feel that way about recreational.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't pertain to county.
Well, there are county issues, but.
Well, you can have an opinion on it if you want.
I'm happy to belt out some words. Go ahead.
I'm not going to pretend to be an addiction treatment counselor or a doctor, but it's my understanding that these studies, if they exist, that claim that marijuana is a gateway drug is false. Like, it's not true. I think, and I would love to see some sources if you actually have some. I'm open to a conversation about it, but speaking with my friends who are addiction treatment counselors and doctors and who study addiction, I think one of the more damaging drugs that's pervasive in our communities is actually alcohol. Like, I've seen and heard of alcohol destroying families more than I've ever heard of marijuana. I actually haven't heard a single story of anyone's family being destroyed or a wife being beaten or any sort of domestic violence because somebody smoked a joint. Of course, was my time up? Oh, come on, 4 seconds isn't enough.
Well, I'm just gonna, and this isn't as a county commissioner, I can speak as a community corrections director who worked with 90% of addicted people, clients in our community. And alcoholism and drug abuse is a serious problem all across the nation, and Salina is no different. I've read the research on gateway drug for marijuana. I also read research that cigarettes was a gateway drug. I read that alcohol was a gateway drug. In my 35 years of working with addiction and working with mental illness, I read lots of research, and I am not here, or can I be here, to question any of that research. I know that we treated methamphetamine and fentanyl usage more than any other drug. Unfortunately, I agree with John in that the alcoholism is a serious, serious problem, but you don't catch it as well, and you don't address it as quickly as you should.
Well, again, it's something that's not ever going to be a county issue as far as us making policy. I did, in working in the basement of the police department and sheriff's office, I witnessed times that there were drug busts that brought in a heck of a lot of dope, whether it was marijuana or cocaine or meth, and put down in our office, in our conference room for emergency management. There were tables and tables and tables full. I have not read anything pertaining to the studies that you talked about, Lene, but I know there is a problem.
Thank you.
I don't think I really need an introduction, but I'll do it anyway. My name is Raiden Gonzalez, and I am a teacher becoming. And I, as a student here, I'm a son of USD 305. My question is pertaining to Brownback's policies, because I was a student under that time who kind of suffered. I'm a SPED student, a former SPED student, and I'm about to become a special education teacher. My question is, colleagues in the state legislature are thinking about cutting the corporate tax rate to 0. And if you guys don't know, under Brownback's policy, that devastated education. So I kind of just want to hear your guys' feedback on what would you do in a case that the legislature does enact the corporate tax rate to 0 that would affect education and many other infrastructure policies here in the state of Kansas.
I'll start. Sam Brownback hadn't been on a ballot in the state of Kansas or anywhere else for 10 years. I think we need to stop talking about Sam Brownback. I know that's a big talking point for Democrats, but the fact of the matter is, it's been 10 years since Sam Brownback was on a ballot. We did add money for special education this past session. And in fact, special education was funded at a higher rate under Brownback than it ever was under Sebelius or Kelly. I mean, check it, look it up, call the Legislative Research Department. You'll find that to be true. Now, did he fund it to the full extent? No, but neither have Sebelius or Kelly. So my hackles get up as soon as somebody starts talking about Sam Brownback. Sam is, and I like Sam, I know Sam, but he's yesterday's news.
I was on the Board of Education during those years and had to make decisions about what teachers got to keep their jobs and what teachers we had to let go during that time, and I never want to go back to that again. We have been funding our public education for the last 5 years. We are on the path to continuing that. That is wonderful. Our schools need resources. The special education dollars are the area that we need to be focusing our energies on, because that will impact the general fund. When those dollars are redirected to special education students from the general fund, it limits teacher raises. It limits extracurricular activities. It limits programs in our building. I will say the best thing that came out of the Sam Brownback era was the career tech ed funding that took place. And we have students today that graduate with associate's degrees in technical skills, 2 of my children included, at the same time they complete high school.
I know. You're so pushy.
I am.
You know, I think it's really important to keep bringing up the name Sam Brownback, because what he did to our state was a disaster. But it's going to continually be a part of the conversation because Republicans continue to push initiatives that just cut taxes for the wealthiest people in our state at the expense of our children. And I'm not for that. We need to continuously fund our public schools, general education, and special education, and reducing the corporate tax rate to 0 in 2025, it's not the move at all.
I'd like county perspective too.
Excuse me?
I'd like county perspective too.
Well, I mean, Lori said it well. I worked with Lori for many, many years, and we know that children and youth, not just children, all youth across Saline County needed those services. And special education is funding that has to be there and isn't there enough. And I hear it from my friend, the teachers and everywhere. So I would always advocate for full school funding, but also the special education needs, because they're growing up in our community. They're going to remain in our community, and those services are vital so that they can thrive as healthy adult citizens.
As a retired teacher, I believe in fully funding schools. Special ed has its own needs, but all aspects of school funding need to continue to be at or above the level at which they currently are. The county does contribute some monies to school funding, and if the state were to change their funding, then the county would have to do something, but we're not at that point.
Thank you. And Representative Sanders, good to see you again.
Yeah,
So I'm Dave Baker, no relation to John Baker. And I served in the House of Representatives with Clarke, and I retired and moved to Salina, Kansas about 6 months ago. And gee,
That's why you were always asking me about it.
you know, and darned if I didn't end up not in your district. But anyway, I guess I just want to have a few comments here, and I'll make them brief, which is pretty unusual for a politician. But first of all, thank you guys for serving and stepping up to run for office. I will tell you, it's admirable that you take time out of your Sunday afternoon and come. Other people obviously didn't feel the need. Thanks for doing that. The pay is the same whether you show up or not, right? You don't have to go to anything. That's pretty harsh. One of the things we need to talk about, transparency and compensation. And incidentally, Clarke doesn't know a lot about health insurance because the government pays for Clarke's health insurance. I know how that feels, Clarke, and that's a great deal. It's wonderful insurance. And another question I have is consolidation. Oh, you're going to ding me out? Dang. Dang. Oh, well, that's all right. Talk about compensation, then we'll talk about that one.
Legislative compensation?
All of them. City, county, legislative, they're all. There's a lack of transparency on compensation in elected officials. What is the compensation, Clarke?
Well, now or next year?
This next year. Now, what is it now and what is it going to?
It's going up a lot. It's going up way too much.
No.
It needed to go up, but it's going up. So right now, this is going to take more than a minute, but
I can do it in about 30 seconds,
no,
so you go
couldn't
ahead.
even ask a question in a minute. So you became the moderator? Okay, so it's 18,000, but there's also per diem, there's mileage, there's that sort of thing. It's going to 52,000. Yeah, it's a huge increase. I wasn't in favor of that, but that's what's happening. So I don't know if I'll be able to get paid that kind of money because I've got to get reelected, and I'm hoping that's going to happen. I don't know, but anyway. And by the way, you can call legislative research. Anybody can, and find out that.
Did you want all of us to talk about that, Dave?
What?
You wanted all of us to answer that question?
Well,
I only know what I have followed. I guess I'll go into that. I know that there was a committee that studied the pay rates, and the legislature had to take action for them not to come into play. And there was one motion that failed in a committee to have more discussion about that pay, and so the committee's recommendation is what is going to happen in 2025. And so Clarke said he was against that, but I don't think he brought something to the floor to oppose that. So I do think that the compensation allows common people to run for office. What we have now is a situation where you have to have a source of income, be retired or independently wealthy to serve. I don't know anybody that can live on $18,000 a year. That's a hard thing to do, and if you're looking for somebody that's not in retirement situation, I think our officials need to be paid.
Saline County Commissioners are currently compensated at $18,000 a year. That is money that when there were three, it was significantly more per person because they took that same amount and split it to the five. They have health insurance. Doesn't matter for me because I have health insurance. I don't need it.
I was active when it was $32,000 commissioner, and I was active when they brought in five and it went down to just a little under $19,000. It's interesting, Monty Shadwick, a big shout out for Commissioner Shadwick, he donates his salary, he doesn't take it. I think that I think it's out there. I don't want to say it's not transparent, but I don't think people are well aware that our city commissioners make in the hundreds and just approved a very slight increase. Our county commissioners make quite a bit more, and they do get full-time benefits. You get full benefits. Obviously, I want to say I'm not running for that. I have a job. I make full benefits, and I have a good salary. I also have a friend that if I needed something, I would go to that person and get some money. So I'm not there for that, but I think it's important that people are aware that the county and the city are different. They don't do the same amount of work. They don't make the same amount of salaries and benefits, and I think that we do need to be transparent towards that.
Mr. Baker, not related. I don't necessarily think there's anything inherently wrong with the increase in pay. I'll agree with Lori that this gives more opportunity for younger people like myself, to actually do this because $18,000 would not be enough. It opens up the door to a lot of people in our communities who otherwise would not be willing to serve. It's a huge undertaking personally and financially. However, I think a problem arises, though, when we talk about guys like Jeremy who get 2 paychecks from the government. Next year, if reelected, he would make $52,000 plus benefits and a retirement account by being your senator, but he'd also be collecting a paycheck from the Attorney General's office where he makes over $75,000 a year. So he's going to be making a lot of money, and there are potential conflicts of interest, and that's on top of the money he makes from his third job in Kansas City where he works for Axiom Strategies, a Republican strategy company. So it's a pretty sweet gig.
Thank you. I guess my take on it, I will tell you, is you get what you pay for, and so recommend it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
We have two remaining questions, and I think we'll cut it off after those 2 questions because that'll probably just about take up our time. And I think everybody's been very respectful, tried to, not play this right down the line, but let's just kind of keep it down. everybody here is trying to do their best, and, comments will kind of keep us off track. Ma'am?
Thank you. And I am 65, so I am a ma'am now. So I think I'm going to be running for an office because the school board is voluntary.
Yeah.
My question, I don't really know that any of you can answer it right now, but I want you to have something to walk away with to think about, because I don't know if anybody else caught the theme here, but we have all God's children got problems. We've got, where's my other one? I forgot what it was. Oh, I went to a meeting and everybody went to, but they didn't get the information out. How are you going to get information out to your constituents who are not in the know, because we don't really have all these things available anymore where they can maybe access it, but those who are not in an affluent situation and cannot know exactly, how are you going to get the information to them?
Well, I will pledge to anybody that lives in the 69th district and anybody that's in Salina or anybody that wants to know, I plan on having a newsletter that is talking about what's taking place in Topeka and the bills. As I've been knocking doors, every single one of my walk cards, which there's some over there, if you want my cell phone number, it's on the card. I want to be in communication with people. It's what I've done my whole life, is listen to people, and I think that the group mind is how we get better. When we can listen to diverse experiences and diverse perspectives, we can find a solution that can be helpful to all of us. But when we eliminate the ability for that communication, we limit opportunity.
My cell phone number is 785-577-4604. It's, if you didn't have a chance to write that down, it's on the legislative website. I receive calls all the time from people, and I do the best I can to help those people with whatever their particular needs are. And a lot of times the problem is you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know about things that are available. But the best thing that I think you can do is either write an email, and the best email to get a hold of me at is Clarke, C-L-A-R-K-E, 4, F-O-R, rep, R-E-P, at gmail.com. I also have a legislative website, email, but there's some confusion about whether the state is putting the E on the end of my name. So Clarke, C-L-A-R-K-E, 4, F-O-R, rep, at gmail.com. And I'll be happy to help you in any way that I can.
How we can get word out, well, there's social media. There are public events. The county sends representatives or has people go from different departments to various activities in town. So I feel like the word is out there. As far as my campaigning, I have made a point to go door to door. I've made a point to be available at many places that have people gather for coffee. I've come to the public candidate forums. My phone number, like Clarke, it's out there. It's area code 580-585-1907. And my email address is kathleen.malonecrouch@gmail.org. I have put those out there online. People can contact me. I don't know how else I could be more available.
I think we can always do better. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that the county couldn't do better, state can't do better. We can all do better and make sure that everything is out there. One of the things that I've enjoyed, and my friends would say, yeah, because you're a chitty chatty, but I have so enjoyed people reaching out to me. Everything I've put out, all my door to door, all my efforts have included my cell phone, my personal email. Everybody knows how to find me at Kansas Wesleyan and other resources. And I've gotten lots of emails, and not everybody supports me. And so it's interesting, and I have enjoyed that. But I think that we need to be more transparent and make sure that we are out there and participating in every form available. And one of the things that the outgoing county commissioner said to me when I won the primary was, congratulations, wait till you start getting all the calls about the county roads. I don't know a lot about county roads, but I look forward to it.
I alluded to this in my opening statement here, but I think this really starts, getting the word out starts with actually showing up. Like, I commit myself, and I'm only a single person, to being available to anyone who wants to speak to me. I will be a resource to my community. And that's a lot easier when you actually live here and you participate in your community, unlike Jeremy Clay's. Now, I think there's a lot that we can say on this topic, and again, I probably have like 30 seconds left here. But we also need to be meeting our community members where they're at. Like, we can't expect people who work every single day and who have a lot of responsibilities to reach out to the government. It's the government's responsibility to inform our citizens and people who need it about resources that are available to them, because their taxes pay for it. And I really don't believe any Republican who tells me that they believe in transparency on these types of issues, because their efforts really only show us that they're determined to gut every single public institution we have and deprive people of those benefits.
Okay, I'll make this really quick. First of all, this is a question about immigration and about newcomers to our community. So this is for all of you. I'd like to hear from the county first, and then state reps. As many of you know, business owners have been talking about they can't find workers in this town. Our population has, and you do that to our population over the past 10 years has declined about 2.5%. So we're a little bit under 46,000 according to the census now. What can we do at the county level? What do you see at the county level that we need to do to be more inviting to immigrants? And what at the state level can we do? And I'm not talking about illegal versus legal and all that, but what can we do to be more welcoming? Give it the good Kansas spirit. So thank you for willing to serve, and thank you for your sponsorship.
That's a bite. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, Annie invited me to go first, so I will. I believe that affordable housing is the biggest thing facing Saline County residents and bringing in the workers that we need. If you look at our community, we have a lot of upper-class, wealthy homes. The city is working on affordable housing. I think we need to do more. I don't know what all of the answers are, but I believe that that is something we should address as a community.
And I did invite Kathleen to go first because I'm interested on how everybody feels about that. And I agree, affordable housing is necessary. Unfortunately, the affordable housings that are going out are for middle-class people. They're not for the lower income. I tell people all the time, I could get into those apartments and those houses because I am middle class. I am not wealthy. And so that concerns me. And I know we call it lower class housing because you can get grants. Again, you're going to hear that word out of my mouth so often you're going to get sick. But there are a lot of federal grants out there for low-income housing. But when I look into it and delve into it, it's really for middle class. Some lower class, but it's a little bit questionable. So I think that the housing is important. I think us being open to the population coming into our community to serve the needs that we do have a high need of workers, and for various reasons, and I'm not going to be here to be an expert on that.
I guess I'll go next. No, I think the solution is pretty simple. I think our community is very open and we are very welcoming. I've seen it at the doors when I've been knocking on them. People are very inviting. Like, I love my hometown. I think the issue, though, when it comes to attracting workers is people need to pay them more money. People need good, paying jobs so that they can afford housing that they need benefits associated with that, they need childcare. Like, I don't think the issue in Salina is that we're not nice enough or warm enough. I think everybody here is very warm and welcoming. The issue is people can't make it happen financially. They go somewhere else where there's a better paying job and more resources available to them.
Oh, is it my turn? Okay, then I get the final closing statement?
Sure.
Okay. So, I would count myself among probably everybody in this room that we're all in favor of legal immigration. And that's where it needs to start. There should probably be a better pathway, but people who come into this country need to come into this country legally. It's not fair to the people who have come in legally for people who sneak across the border or somehow get into the country illegally. But we certainly need to do what we can to support legal immigration.
I'm going to go back to my life experience working here in Salina, and I'm so proud of what we've done at Child Advocacy and Parenting Services over the last 10 years. We have a team of 5 bilingual staff people. Our community, our city, and our county government have bilingual people on staff to meet people where they're at and help them connect with the resources that they're eligible for. This place is amazing. I met a lady yesterday who said she moved here from Illinois. She's here 3 times and she's made it her permanent home because Salina is the best place on earth to live. And that story needs to be carried back. We have a group called One Salina that looks at the diversity that's represented here in our community. And that group of people is all about welcoming diverse thought and welcoming people who are not from here originally. So let's figure out how to connect them and plug them into everything that they are eligible for. And let's support children and families so they can be successful and that our economy can grow.
Thank you, everyone, for all the questions that have been answered and asked. Sorry. Thank you. So now we are at our closing time, and every candidate will get 1 minute for their closing statements. John, we started with you, so how about if we start with Annie? And we'll come back around and end with John.
See, now there's a little bit of tussle going on over here because we didn't know who wanted the mic. I thank you again, and I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm excited. I want to do the job. I've wanted to do the job for a while. I remember when I was at Community Corrections, I looked at those 5 commissioners, and I said, watch out, one day I'm coming for one of your jobs. And by golly, the opportunity happened, and it welcomed. I've lived here 37 years. I met my husband here. I raised my children here. My children are gravitating back to Salina. They want to live in Salina, and I want to believe it's because their mama lives here, but I'm not so sure that's true. There's so much goodness here in this community that I welcome them to come back and be a part of this beautiful community and all the friends that I've developed. I have the experience, 29 years in county government, working directly, writing grants, setting budgets, writing budgets with the commissioners, working on subcommittees, being at the legislative area, once a month, if not more, for 29 years. So I welcome the opportunity.
For those who don't know me, I am a retired teacher. I taught for 34 years, most of them in Oklahoma. I married my husband 15 years ago and moved here because he had grandchildren already. I worked for the county. I went to work for the county because my daughter went to seminary. I continued working for the county when she graduated with her master's degree in theology because I felt challenged to overcome some of the deficits that I saw. I too wrote grants. I wrote one grant when I worked in child care for the health department, but I wrote many grants as a teacher. I see things that need to be done in this county. I believe I have a very unique perspective because I did work for emergency management and planning and zoning and environmental health after I worked 2 years in the health department. Please vote for me. My name is Kathleen Malone Crouch.
So, obviously, judging by the applause, or in my case, the lack of applause, I'm not exactly Mr. Popularity here, and I get that, and I understand that. I'd like to ask my wife Lillian to stand up for a moment. She just celebrated her birthday last week. 42, how about that? So, but I'm glad she's here, because at least I know I'm not the only pro-lifer in the room now. I get it, a lot of you don't agree with me, and that's fine. That's what makes the world go round. But I will promise you this. I know most of you in here won't vote for me, whatever. Hope you do, but I doubt that you will. But if I get sent back to Topeka and you've got an issue, pick up your phone, get behind your computer and send me an email. And I think that I've demonstrated today, whether you would like my answer or not, it will be what I really believe, and I won't pander to you.
Well, I'll just close by saying thank you again for taking the time to come and be informed. So many people don't take the time to do that, and I appreciate the fact that this is being videoed and that people who couldn't be here today have the opportunity to see the difference between our candidates. My whole career has been rooted in serving this place. I was born and raised here in Salina. I have 3 children who I would love to see come back to this place, that they could afford to do that and make a living wage and continue this wonderful community. But I want to hear from people also. I'm running because people asked me to. It wasn't something that I really was seeking. I have leadership that's been tested here. I've been successful. I am community invested, and I'm ready to work for you. Thank you again for being here and being engaged in the process.
John?
Last one, wow. I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters once again for hosting this event, and also for the Steifel Theater, and thanks to the media for being here as well. I'll reiterate, this is extremely important. Thank you so much for being here. These conversations are important to our community, and this is about building community. Everyone who showed up today to participate in the discussion, it's amazing. And I think what I'd like to talk now to finish here is my opponent has been absent from this election throughout its entirety, and from the challenges facing our district. I'm committed, if elected, to be present and to be engaged. Like I said earlier, all of this is about showing up and being held accountable, and I don't think Jeremy Ryan Clays believes in accountability. A good friend told me recently that your effort in this election equals your representation, and I think your choice is pretty clear at this point if you've been listening today. You're going to vote for somebody who doesn't want to be a part of our community and who refuses to participate in these sessions, or you can vote for somebody who's here right now.
Thank you so much, candidates and audience. And now, please welcome our League of Women Voters Salina President, Lori.
I just want to say thank you to the candidates for attending. It is so important that you were here. Thank you to our media personnel. Thank you to Eagle Radio and Salina Media Connection for live streaming and videoing our event. And thank you to all the members of the Salina League of Women Voters that helped put this together. And thank you to all of you for coming. When it comes to elections and voting, it is vital that constituents and candidates have the opportunity to come together and discover what is important to each other. Elected officials are the voices of those they represent, and without events like this, they cannot adequately represent us. Just a reminder on the election, the general election day is Tuesday, November 5th. You may cast your ballot at your polling place from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you do not know where your polling place is, you may go to Vote 411, or you can call the Saline County Clerk's office, and they can tell you where you need to go and vote. As Bruce said, advanced voting starts tomorrow morning at 8:30. You can vote in the Saline County Election Clerk's office at 300 West Ash, Monday through Friday. They are having a Saturday voting day on November the 2nd. You may vote in the Saline County Clerk's office from 9 to 4. Advanced voting closes on Monday, November 4th at noon. Tuesday, October 29th is the last day to apply for an advanced ballot by mail. And I just thank you all for coming, and go to the polls and use your voice.